Welcome to the first video of the channel. Today we're going to be talking about one of my favorite decks. It's a group hug deck based around Miss BumbleFlower, who is their one colorless Bant, 4-drop Rabbit Citizen. It's a 1/5 Vigilance. Whenever you cast a spell, target opponent draws a card. Put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. It gains flying until end of turn. If this is the second time this ability is resolved this turn, you draw 2 cards. The deck is primarily focused around giving our opponents things, letting us draw cards, letting them draw cards. We're not the threat until we are. So we're going to look at artifacts first. We've got Arcane Signet, Felwar Stone, Howling Mine for additional card draw, Swiftfoot Boots for protection for BumbleFlower, Soul Ring, ramp, Thought Vessel, primarily here for the no maximum hand size. We're going to be drawing lots of cards, so we're going to take advantage of that. And Wedding Ring. When it comes into play, you create a copy of it to give to an opponent. When that opponent draws cards, you draw cards. When you draw cards, they draw cards. The same for life. If they gain life, you gain life, vice versa. And it's great to look one of your opponents dead in the face and say, hey, you want to get married? For creatures, we have 17 creatures. We have Archmage Emeritus, card draw. Birds of Paradise for ramp. Chasm Skulker creates bodies. Consecrated Sphinx for additional card draw. Flump for additional card draw. You make a deal with an opponent. They attack you. You block with Flump. You both draw cards. Win-win. Lunch. Great card draw. You give your opponents counters. You give another player a draw card. And the third player creates 2 treasure tokens. Great group hug deck for a group hug card. You got Heartwood Storyteller. Whenever a player casts a non-creature spell, each of that player's opponents may draw a card. Again, group hug, card draw. Draw creates tokens whenever you draw your second card. We're going to be drawing 2 cards a turn with this deck, so we're going to create lots of cat tokens. Quain. You tap him, each player draws a card, and then gains a life. Lauren of the Third Path. You and target opponent each draw a card when you tap it. What's not to love? And when it comes into play, you destroy target artifact or enchantment. So it's removal and card draw on a stick. Mangar the Diplomat. Card draw. Cycrosis Crawler. This is pretty much one of our win cons. If it sticks, it never sticks. Its power and toughness is equal to the number of cards in your hand. We don't care about that. Yes, it can get big, but that's not what it's here for. The second ability, whenever you draw a card, each opponent loses a life. We're going to be drawing so many cards in this deck, our opponent's life totals are just going to melt. Rishgar Prima Renegade turns all of our creatures into mana dorks. Selvala Explorer Return lets everybody draw a card, and we get mana and gain life from that. Socrates fogs one creature, and everybody draws cards. Stillbird Champion. It's like Mana Gorger Hydra, but better. White Mane Lion, so that we can get those double casts on our opponent's turns. Enchantments, we've got 10. We got Wizard class. It has 3 abilities. We only care about the first one. You have no maximum hand size. That's all we care about. Tenuous Truce. You pretty much create a truce with the enchanted player. They don't attack you. You don't attack them. And at the end of each of their turns, you both draw cards. Smothering Tithe. We all know what it does. Anytime an opponent draws a card, unless they pay 2, you create a treasure token. They're going to be drawing so many cards, they're not going to be able to pay for it. So, if it sticks, which it never does, we're going to be getting lots of mana. Rites of Flourishing. Everybody plays an additional land, everybody draws an additional card. Great for a group hug deck. Rhystic Study. This lets us outpace our opponents on card draw. Whenever they cast a spell, we draw a card unless they pay an additional 1. They rarely pay the 1. Usually they just blow at Rhystic Study. Propaganda and Ghostly Prison, same thing. Whenever a creature attacks you, they have to pay 2 per creature to attack you. Eladamri's Vineyard. Everybody gets an additional 2 mana at the beginning of their upkeep. It's great ramp, great group hug. Dictate of Crewfix is just a Howling Mine on an enchantment. Everybody draws an additional card at their upkeep. Communal brewing. When it comes into play, any number of target opponents each draw a card. Put an ingredient counter on communal brewing for each card drawn this way. Each creature you control then enters with a +1/+1 counter for each counter on communal brewing. So everybody gets cards and you get bigger creatures. Instance, we have an offer you can't refuse. Good counterspell. Broken Wings. This is artifact, enchantment, and creature with flying removal. There's a lot of problematic creatures with flying in my meta. That's why that's here instead of just something like a Naturalize, which is 1 mana cheaper. Cyclonic Rift, Great Board Wipe, Dovin's Veto, Uncounterable, counter, Frantic Search, card draw, and untap, so we can cast this on an opponent's turn to get that trigger, and then untap our land so we can cast something else. Generous Gift, creature removal, Illusionist Gambit. It's a fog, but gives your opponent an additional combat phase, and they just can't attack you. Long River's Pull, it's a counter spell if you give an opponent a card draw. So for 2 mana, you let them draw a card, and then you counter any spell. Mana Drain, we know what Mana Drain does. Big time counter spell. Peerless Recycling, it's 1 card recursion, but if you let your opponent draw a card, it's 2 card recursion. We got Teferi's Protection and Perch Protection, which are very similar. Teferi's Protection, you phase out. Perch Protection, you create 4 bird tokens, and then you can give an opponent an extra turn for you to phase out. Pongify, creature removal, rewind, counterspell, and untap lands. Again, cast it on an opponent's turn. We get more lands to cast more spells on their turn. So we get the extra card draw from BumbleFlower. Snap, same thing. Return a creature to its owner's hand. Untap lands. Great. Planeswalkers, we got Jace Beleren. It's got 3 modes. We only care about the first one. Each player draws a card. That's all we care about. So every turn you're going to +2 Jace to have everybody draw a card. Tamiyo Field Researcher, this is here to give our creatures card draw. We're going to usually select BumbleFlower and maybe one of our tokens or something that can get in for some damage. And each time it does, we're going to draw a card. Sorceries, we got Divine Gambit. Exile target artifact, creature, or enchantment an opponent controls. That player may put a permanent card from their hand onto the battlefield. It's just a group hug removal spell. Farseek, we got Ramp. Minds Aglow, starting with you, each player may pay any amount of mana. Each player draws X cards, where X is the total mana paid. It doesn't matter how many lands or how much mana my opponents put into this, because I'm always going to dump as much mana as I have into it, just so everybody can draw cards. Everybody has fun. Everybody plays the game. Rampant Growth, Ramp. Secret Rendezvous, me and target opponent draw a card, or draw 3 cards. Supreme Verdict, uncounterable, board wipe. Tempt with Bunnies, I draw a card, create a rabbit. Each opponent may draw a card and create a rabbit, and for each opponent who does, I draw an additional card and create additional rabbits. Tempt with Discovery, I search for a land. Each opponent searches for a land. Each opponent who searches for a land, I search for another land. So they get their best land, and I get 4 of my best lands. Wear Down, artifact or enchantment removal. If we let an opponent draw a card, it's 2 artifacts and enchantment removal. Then we got lands. We have 38 lands. This is by far the most expensive piece of the deck because of cards like Tundra. Now, you can build this without Tundra. Just put an island in its place, and it will suddenly be about an $80 land base. But we have Adakar Wastes, Brushed Lands, Canopy Vista, Command Tower, Exotic Orchard, Flooded Grove, 5 Forests, a Fortified Village, Glacial Fortress, Hollowed Fountain, Hinterland Harbor, 5 Islands, Overflowing Basin, 5 Plains, Prairie Stream, Razor Verge Thicket, Reliquary Tower, Seachrome Coast, Seaside Citadel, Sky Cloud Expanse, Spara's Headquarters, Sungrass Prairie, Sunpetal Grove, Tundra, of course, Vine Glimmer Snarl, and Yavimaya Coast. The average CMC for the deck is about 2.71, which is a little high, but again, there are cards in here that they could be cheaper, but we're using them because they are group hug cards. And the total cost for the deck is looking at $973.21. Again, the majority of that's in Tundra. Take out Tundra, and it's a very, very budget-friendly group hug deck. It keeps everybody in the game. Everybody draws cards. Everybody plays lands. And you can even use BumbleFlower to buff up your opponent's creatures if you want to. So everybody gets to have fun. And you're not the target until it's too late and you're suddenly a threat and they have a 25-31 rabbit swinging at them in the air and they can't do anything about it. But yeah, that's the deck tech for Miss Bumbleflower, which I have deemed fun bun. If you'd like to see more of these, let me know. Like, comment, subscribe. This is my first video for this channel, and we're going to see where it goes from here. I'll see you in the next one.